Good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to welcome you all on behalf of Unacademy, India's largest online learning platform for the preparation of various competitive exams. My name is Neelam Malkani, and I'm going to be your facilitator and guide CAT and other management exams. I have been coming live on this channel and taking sessions for vocabulary building. We discuss words through etymology, their roots, prefix and suffix. Then we did 2 sessions on learning vocabulary with pictures and images. Then I took 2 sessions on building vocabulary and learning words with current affairs. With the discussion of contemporary issues, we learned a lot of words. Today, I'm live again with one more session on vocabulary building with one of the important happening which is going to affect entire world, US presidential election. Yes, with that we will try together the meaning of some very important words. Some of these words are exclusively related with American election. Some of these terms can be applicable to any kind of election, right? So they are also fitting in Indian context. All right. So let's start with today's session, but before that, let me give you a brief introduction of myself as well as of the platform Unacademy. As I said, my name is Neelam Malkani. I possess around 12 years of experience of test preparation industry, and I have trained students of CAT, GRE, GMAT, IELTS and TOEFL scoring well in their respective exams. My expertise lie in 2 fields, verbal ability, that is verbal reasoning, as well as English. I have also set and designed assessment papers of English and reasoning for different government bodies as well as for professional bodies. I have also served as an examiner with an international organization for which I assist the proficiency of speaking and writing of those candidates for taking that exam. Recently, I have authored a comprehensive book of English for the preparation of competitive exams. The book is written in both Hindi and English. The video is brought to you by Unacademy. So let me tell you step by step how you can be part of this platform to prepare for your exam. You have to go in the Play Store and download Unacademy Learning app. We'll be shown 2 versions of the app. As a learner, as a student, you have to download Learning app. After you fill in all the details required to download the app, you will be shown the category of courses which are offered. So one of them is Plus, another is free courses and special classes. If you want to attend classes of CAT, you have to go in the category of Plus. When you go in the category, you will be shown all the courses which are offered under this category, such as CAT, GRE, IELTS and other courses. When you opt for CAT, you will be shown all the features that you will be getting once you choose the course. The features such as 30 hours of live session every day. So every day, as per your convenience, as per your availability, as per your suitability, you can choose the time of your classes. You can choose your educator, you can choose the course that you want to attend. So different courses aiming at the preparation of CAT will be delivered every day. So 30 hours of live classes. These courses are offered and delivered by 40 plus top educators of their respective fields. These people have extensive experience of mentoring and guiding students for different exams. And these courses which are delivered by these faculty members are well structured and well designed by those people who have experience of curriculum design and module development. What more, every month a new course is published, a new course which caters to the specific needs of a course or an exam, right? After that, you go in the subscription and you will be shown all the models of subscription. Different models of subscription have been devised to cater to your specific needs. If you're targeting CAT 20, you don't have to pay for entire year. You just have to pay for a month. If you're targeting those exams which are going to happen in January and February, some exams like that, you can go for 2 months subscription. Or if you're targeting CAT 21, you can go for yearly subscription. So as per your need and requirements, you can choose the model of subscription, right? And these subscription are very pocket friendly and economical, all right? Now, if you want to avail 10% further discount, you have to type code Neelam, right? So whichever model of subscription you choose, you have to type this code in order to avail 10% further discount, all right? Now, one more important piece of information that I want to share with you, that is Unacademy is organizing National Scholarship Test. Every Sunday, this test is being organized. It started on 18th of October. So first test was conducted on 18th of October. So coming Sunday, you can enroll and take the test. Now, what is going to be the benefit of this test? The test is going to be covering all the sectional all the sectional of as per the structure and the pattern of CAT, right? So three sections: LRDI, quantitative ability, and logical reading comprehension and verbal ability are designed as per the pattern and structure of CAT, right? Second, top 50 scorers will get Amazon vouchers. So if you excel in this exam and you come among the top 50 scorers, you will get this voucher. You will also get to see the in-depth analysis of each section. Same day, you will be given the detailed analysis of each section by an expert faculty. All right, so do enroll yourself and take this test. You will be given your All India ranking as well, right? Because your exam, the exam that you are going to take, will give you the competition of All India level. So at this stage where you are preparing, you need to know where you stand in terms of your preparation. All right, so this test is going to be an eye-opener for you, whether you are ready to take this exam or which section needs some fine-tuning in terms of strategy and in terms of foundation. All right, so do enroll yourself and take this test and get to know about your preparedness as well as about your All India ranking. And what more, you can still stand chances of winning these prizes. So top scorer 1 from top scorer 10 will get Amazon vouchers of rupees 5,000. Scorer 11 to 30 will be given 3,000. Scorer 31 to 50 will be given 2,000 Amazon voucher. All right. Now let's get started with today's session. Now, why I have chosen US presidential election as a topic for building vocabulary. One, there are some jargons which are associated with all kinds of election, right? So we have certain jargons which are popular whenever we have an election in India, right? So we get to hear them quite often whenever you get to see people discussing these issues on different channels. When they come and talk about their party or they talk about their party campaign, they use certain terminology and phrases which sometimes you are completely unaware of, right? So one, it is going to increase your awareness of these terms, these jargons which are confined to politics. Second, US election, US presidential election is wide-ranging implication in terms of economy and polity, right? So entire geopolitical issues are going to be affected by US presidential election. So it definitely is one of the key happenings which is happening this year. All right, so you cannot be oblivious to who is contesting election, who are the running mates, what is going to be the popular vote, and how Electoral College happens, right? So you cannot afford to be oblivious to it. Second, why it is important for your exam point of view. By the time inauguration ceremony happens in January, some of you will be facing your GD and PI, right? So some of the colleges, some of the exams result will have been declared in January, and you must be in the process of facing your group discussion and personal interview. So this issue will be widely, heavily debated in your GD as well as in your personal interview, right? So if you write that you are interested in reading or you read newspaper, so certainly this issue will come in your discussion. All right, so you need to be thorough with terms, jargon, so that you can throw them up when you discuss this topic. All right, what more, if there is a passage based on US presidential election or election per se. If there is a passage which is dealing with politics or which is dealing with election, you will have greater familiarity with the terms. If you already know the meaning of these terms, understanding the passage is going to be a smooth sailing, right? You won't get stuck on these terms just because you don't understand the meaning. Alright, so it is going to have multifarious effect. That's why I have chosen this topic. I hope it is going to serve you some good. Let's get started. First picture and first word. You can see, and I hope all of you identify who this man is. So Donald Trump, the incumbent of White House, right? So incumbent is the first word that I have taken up for today's session. So a person who holds a position, an official position, is an incumbent, right? So he is the present incumbent of White House, right? So incumbent is a person who holds a position in an office. So the present incumbent of the White House, the incumbent president faces problems which began many years before he took office. So the incumbent president means a person who is holding the position of president at present, right? Next sentence, the present incumbent is due to retire next month. So the present incumbent can be any person who is holding a position of authority or an office. The person is going to retire. That means his tenure is going to come to an end and he is going to retire. The present incumbent. Though the word has been taken in political domain, but you can use it for different contexts as well. So when you use the incumbent management of Tata Consultancy, you are referring to the person who is holding the top position in Tata Consultancy services, right? So the incumbent management. When you say the incumbent director, right? So again, this word can be used in different contexts. Director, a person who is holding the topmost position in a company or an organization. So though word is widely used in political domain for talking about political discourse, but this can also be used in other contexts, economic context as well as in social context. So the incumbent supplier here, right? So here incumbent supplier is the person who is termed as a supplier to an organization. All right. So incumbent is a person who holds an office. This is present incumbent of White House is Donald Trump. Now, one more meaning of incumbent. A lot of words have multiple meanings, right? So there is one more meaning of incumbent. So let's discuss that as well. When you say it is incumbent upon you, or it is incumbent upon a person, that means it is necessary for that person to do something, right? So I have given you all these words. I gave you words with pictures, I gave you words with etymology. Now it is incumbent upon you to make use of these words. That means now it's your responsibility. Now it's necessary for you to make use of these words, use these words in your speaking and in your writing, in your productive skills, so that these words are registered in your mind for a long time. It is incumbent upon you, right? So your parents educate you, they give you everything which is possible for them. Now it is incumbent upon you to avail the benefits of those facilities, right? So here, incumbent upon you, that means it is necessary for you. It is upon you now, all right? So incumbent upon will have different meaning when you use somebody is an incumbent, that will mean somebody who holds an office, all right? So we have Joe Biden, who is contesting election against the incumbent of White House, Donald Trump, all right? I hope the meaning is clear. We have two usage and two meaning of incumbent. Now with that word only, we have this interesting term which is time and again used in Indian political scenario, anti-incumbency, right? So anti-incumbency, which worked against Congress government in 2014 election, right? So anti-incumbency factor or anti-incumbency sentiment led to the whooping victory of Narendra Modi or BJP, right? Anti-incumbency. Now we understand what incumbent is. Let's try to understand what incumbency means, right? So incumbency refers to the period during which an official holds office, right? So that's a noun form of incumbent. Incumbent will be adjective and incumbency will be noun. See this word, anti-incumbency, a sentiment or a feeling against the person who is holding a position or who is holding a powerful position. All right, so that is anti-incumbency factor. Anti-incumbency work against a lot of ruling parties, a lot of government who are ruling, which are ruling, but an election comes and there is an anti-incumbency factor. People are highly dissatisfied. They have huge discontent with the performance of the government and they vote them out, right? So people have anti-incumbency feeling. That means they are not satisfied with the people who are holding the position. And because of this, they vote against those people and that party is routed in the election and opposition party comes into power. Alright? So anti-incumbency factor. So if one were to define anti-incumbency, it simply refers to vote exercised against the elected officers in power. Alright? So we see in some Indian states anti-incumbency factor working out, like Rajasthan. It's a very clinching example of anti-incumbency factor. Every 5 years, there is a change of power, right? So Rajasthan, people of Rajasthan give, power or mandate to the party which sits in opposition. So 5 years, they elect one party, next 5 years, they elect the party which sits in opposition, right? So that's how anti-incumbency factor always plays out in a state like Rajasthan. It also works in other states as well. Alright, so I hope now you understand whenever you see these political discourse happening on different platforms, on different channels, you will understand what it means. Alright, so there is huge anti-incumbency factor in America as well. Americans are highly dissatisfied with the policies and the execution of those policies by Donald Trump, and they are going to vote against him, right? So anti-incumbency also relevant in American political scenario. Alright, so incumbent, anti-incumbency. Now bellwether states. Alright, so before giving you the meaning, how it applies to the American context or how it applies to the presidential election, let me tell you what bellwether comes from or what it actually means. So the term derives from the name for a sheep which shepherd would fit with a bell, right? So when there is a herd of sheep, the shepherd will select a sheep and he will tie that sheep with a bell, right? So by listening to the sound of this bell, shepherd would come to know what is the direction of entire flock, right? So that means something that is used as a sign of what will happen. So that bell is a sign or indication where that flock is heading, where that flock is going, right? And that gives the shepherd the direction of the flock or the fleet, right? So that is what is bellwether. So the origin of this word is the bell which is tied around a sheep, the main sheep who is going to be at the forerunner, who is going to be the forerunner of the entire flock, right? So with his movement, entire flock is going to follow him, and with that sound which that bell is going to make, shepherd will come to know the direction of the flock, right? So from that, the word is used for anything which signals future, anything which indicates what is going to happen in future, all right? So something that is used as a sign of what will happen in future or something that shows how a situation will develop or change is bellwether, right? So the report is viewed as a bellwether for economic trends. So we have our budget, and before that we have Economic Survey of India, right? So Economic Survey of India serves as a bellwether of economic indicators for country or different sectors. So that's a bellwether report, all right? University campuses are often the bellwether of change. So you see GNU as the perfect example of that. So if there is resentment or frustration over an issue or a policy or any other subject, you see some frustration simmering in these campuses, especially those people who are politically active or those people who are socially active in these campuses. So you start seeing the signs of protest or other kind of resentment, right? So these university campuses are often the bellwether of change because of the discussions, because of the debate, and because of the academic activities which happen in these university campuses. They signal what is going to be the change, all right? So university campuses are often the bellwether of change. They are the sign that what change is going to be followed in society. Ohio here. Ohio, one of the states of US, is seen as a bellwether state in this election, right? Now this comes for US presidential election. Now, one more sentence and then we will go back to discussing this word in US context. She is a bellwether of fashion, right? So she, whatever she wears, whatever she follows, whatever trends she adopts, is going to be a bellwether of fashion. People are going to adopt it, right? So people who follow her are going to adopt all the fashion styles and trends that she follows. So she is a bellwether of fashion. So Bollywood stars are the bellwether of trends and fashion. So whatever they wear, whatever style they adopt, is deep down penetrated among common masses later on. All right. So that is how bellwether is the indication. Now try to understand this word in US context, right? So bellwether states, like we just read one sentence, Ohio, one of the states is a bellwether state. Now, a state that historically tends to vote for the winning candidate are bellwether states. So perhaps because demographically a microcosm of the country as a whole. So the state is, the composition of the state, the population of the state is a short or is a tiny representation of entire country, right? The way country is constituted, the way country is, composed, same way the state is, is the same composition, has the same composition. So that way that state represents entire country. So whatever happens in that state is an indication that entire country is going to follow that trend, right? So that is a bellwether state. So what happens in that state very likely will be the result of entire country. A good example is Ohio, which has not backed a losing presidential election since 1960, right? So it has always voted for the candidate who later became the President of America, right? So no Republican has ever won the White House without this state. Without winning Ohio, no Republican candidate has ever won the presidency, all right? So here it's a bellwether state. So if we try to understand this in Indian context, right? So we say UP because it has highest number of Lok Sabha seats and Rajya Sabha seats, right? So we also say कि संसद का रास्ता यूपी से होकर जाता है, right? So what happens in UP? Because it is again a microcosm of entire India. You have different castes, you have different creed, you have different ethnicity, you have different religion there in that state, right? So it may not be the perfect representation, but partly it can represent entire India, right? So what happens in UP? If UP is going to favor a party, very likely that party will also come into power at national level, right? So this is how you can come, you can understand this word in Indian context. So UP can be a bellwether state when it comes to election. So before Lok Sabha election, if there is state election in UP and a party wins that election, so that party can be sure of getting the mandate at national level as well. All right, so bellwether state in American context and Indian context. I hope the word is clear. I hope the meaning of bellwether as a neutral word is also clear, right? So the word has a strong connotation, political connotation, but can also be used for other, contexts, like she is a bellwether of fashion, right? So any person who is a trendsetter, any person who is seen as a pioneer can also be a bellwether, all right? So a lot of people follow share market and they see certain stocks as bellwether. So if they do good, share market is going to do good, right? So that way those shares or those stocks can also be bellwether signs for how economy is going to perform. All right? Okay, one more word, that is capital. So we have capital, our capital is in Delhi, and we have our state capital as well. But this is the seat of Congress in Washington, D.C. So it's a building where Congress meet and have their discussion, pass their legislation, debate, and everything. All these legislative proceedings happen in Capitol. So the seat of Congress in Washington, D.C. is Capitol. So the building in Washington, D.C. where the US Congress meets to work on new laws. So constructed largely of white marble, it is home to both the Senate and the House of Representatives. Like us, US also has bicameral legislation. So there are two houses. So in our parliament there are two houses, Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. So they have House of Representatives and Senate, right? So these two, when they assemble to discuss a law, to implement a law, or to amend a law, they meet in this building, right? So the steps of the Capitol building are traditionally the stage for the inauguration of the presidency on the 20th January following an election year. Right? So inauguration happens on 20th of January, where new elected president takes oath and starts his tenure as the president. So this ceremony happens in this building only. Alright? So this is specifically related with America, that building, right? Okay, I hope all of you understand what this word means, delegates. Alright, so let's first understand what this word means linguistically, and then we will come back to the previous slide and understand what this word specifically means in American presidential election context. A person who is chosen or elected to present the view of a group of people and vote and make decisions for them. So we have chosen our delegates. So the MLAs that we have chosen, the MPs we have chosen, or the corporator that we have chosen for local bodies are our delegates. We give them power to take decision on our behalf, right? So we have given them our vote, we have cast vote in their favor so that they represent in these different houses. If there is a corporator, he is going to represent you in Nagar Nigam. If you have elected an MLA, he is going to be part of Vidhan Sabha of that state. If you have chosen an MP, he is going to represent you at national level in Lok Sabha. Alright, so these are our delegates, these are our representatives, these are the people who represent their own constituencies. Alright, so delegate are representatives. So a Congress delegate rejected the proposals. A person who attends a conference is also delegate, right? So the conference was attended by delegates from 56 countries. So again, a person who is representing his own country in that conference. They decided not to send a delegate to the conference, right? So delegate is a person who represents his own country, his own organization, or maybe his own people, constituency in a house. Alright? Now that is what delegate means. Now please try to understand how this word applies to US presidential election. The party members whose vote at the National Convention officially determine the two parties' presidential candidates. Unlike India, the president nominee is also elected, right? So you have to win or earn the nomination within your party, right? So in order to fight presidential election, Joe Biden had to fight within the party, right? Earlier, when Donald Trump was fighting in 2016, he had to fight within the party to earn the nomination. Now, the delegates are those people who choose these candidates, right? On behalf of the party, these delegates are going to cast in favor of two different candidates. So if from Republican Party there are two candidates who wish to fight presidential election, these delegates are going to vote and decide who will be the party's candidate for presidential election, right? So they are elected from primaries and caucus, right? To officially determine the two parties' presidential election. Most of the delegates at the convention are obligated to vote for the candidate chosen in primary election or caucus in their home states, right? So they are obligated, they are binding to vote for the candidate who was chosen at The primary, the local election, or caucus. In some states there are caucus elections, in some states there are primary elections, right? So in these elections, the candidate who wins, these delegates finally vote for that candidate only, and then the person who earns majority of votes of these delegates is projected as the presidential nominee of that party. Alright, so within party there is election for winning the presidential nominee, right? So these are delegates who represent people. These delegates represent the wishes of people. Alright, because in caucus and primary election, people have voted for a certain candidate, and ultimately these delegates choose that candidate. Alright. Now, delegate as a verb. Let's understand how this word is also used as a verb. So, the previous slides discussed delegate as a noun, right? Now, let's try to understand how this is used as a verb. To give part of your work or your responsibility or your authority to somebody in a lower position than you. That is also delegate, right? So, when there is centralization of power, right? And when a person holds a lot of portfolio, or when a person holds a lot of responsibilities, it is practically impossible for him to discharge all the duties well. He's definitely going to falter, right? So he is going to delegate. So remember when we started panchayat system in 70s, to delegate power, to decentralize the power, right? To decentralize the power, that means at the local level, panchayat will be given some authority to implement law, to execute law, to collect tax and some other responsibilities, right? So that was to delegate power to them, right? A local area, a local village is not going to be directly administered by state or by center, but rather local administration will be there, or local legislative will be there in the form of panchayat, right? So delegation of power happened when we started panchayati Raj system in India. So to give power, part of your power authority to somebody else. So some managers find it difficult to delegate, right? So they want to control power, they want to have all the powers with them, and that is why they find it difficult to delegate. They don't give their powers to other people who work beneath them. Delegate something or delegate to someone. The job had to be delegated to an assistant, right? So an assistant was hired to do certain works which are supposed to be done by the person who holds an important position. To choose somebody to do something, I have been delegated to organize the Christmas party, right? So don't assume that this word has only official meaning, can only be used in a formal way, right? So don't confine this word to that kind of vocabulary list, right? So this word also can be used for your day-to-day conversations, right? So I have been delegated by my father to pay electricity bill, right? So it was his responsibility, but now he has delegated that authority, responsibility to me. All right. So start using this word quite often in your conversation, and then you will see the confidence. With the confidence, you can also use this word in academic circle. All right. So okay, delegate as a verb, delegate as a noun. Now, one word which is though exclusively for American context, for American presidential election, but it has some bearing in Indian political scenario as well, right? We will come to that later on. Let's first understand what this Electoral College is. So people do not vote directly for the president and vice president in America, right? So this is not a direct election. Unlike our perception, this is not a direct election, right? People do not vote for president and vice president. It's an indirect election. In each state, they vote for electors who then vote for a particular candidate. All right. So in each state, an elector is elected by people who then elect the president. Right. So that's how Electoral College is made. All the electoral votes of a state go to one candidate because these electors decide to vote in favor of those candidates who earn popular vote. It is therefore possible for the president to be elected without getting a majority of the US people's vote. So there are people's vote. There are people's popular vote. It sometimes happens, and this is very paradoxical in US election, that somebody who manages to earn the popular vote does not become president. It happened with Hillary Clinton earlier. It happened with Al Gore when he was fighting election against George Bush. He won the popular vote, nonetheless he lost presidency. Here, Hillary Clinton was ahead by 3 million votes. Despite that, she lost the election. She did not win the presidency. Alright, so here, Electoral College is the decisive stage, is the decisive component of US presidential election. What they decide, who they decide to vote for is ultimately going to win the presidency. This Electoral College is made up of these electorals. So electorals are elected by people. Ultimately, president is elected by the members of these Electoral College. Right? So many Americans think that the system is old-fashioned and should be changed. So it's quite polarized issue. A lot of people find it very contentious because of some anomaly which have come up because of this kind of election system. As I told you, 2 examples, Al Gore lost in his election and Hillary Clinton. Though they were popular, though people voted in favor, but they lost the election finally because the Electoral College was not in their favor, right? So a lot of people are discussing, a lot of people are heavily against the system, but the founding fathers of America had some rationale behind it, and I hope it is going to stay there for a while, all right? So Electoral College. Now, how it is also related with Okay, let's try to gather some more understanding of Electoral College. So how this is made. So the collective term for the 538 electors who officially elect the President and the Vice President of the United States. So these 538 people are those who are representative of the House of Commons and Senator, right? So every state, as per its population, as per the number of its House of Representative and Senator, is given the number of electors. Right? So 270 is the figure which one has to attain in order to win presidential elections. Out of 538, 50%, 51% majority is going to be 270. So they ensure that the candidate who wins the election manages to win the majority. That means 50% vote, 51% vote are to be ensured for winning the election, right? Unlike India, where you see that even when a person has 30% vote share, manages to win the election, because the rest 70% was divided among different candidates, right? So 70% do not represent the person who won the election. Nonetheless, he won the election just because we have this system. All right, but here in America, we have the system that a person who holds this topmost position, the position of authority, the position of power, manages to win majority. All right, so 51% are to be won by a candidate, then only he can be declared the president of America. All right, so the number of electors for each state is equal to the combined total of its senator and the representative in Congress. Right. So the slide is with you. If you want to go further, you can get a more understanding of this. Electoral College is made up of these electors, the electors who are representative of people. All right. Now, how this Electoral College is also applicable in India. For our president's election in India, we have not chosen direct method of election. Rather, we have chosen indirect method of election. So in India, for president election, there is Electoral College, which comprises all the elected members of parliament, both houses, Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, all elected members of legislative assemblies and union territory. Alright, so these members make the Electoral College, and the system is also applied in India for presidency. Right? So we do not cast vote for our president, for choosing our president, for electing our president, but our representatives, our MLA, our MP are going to choose the president of this country on behalf of us. Alright, so this is how Electoral College is also valid in Indian political context. All right. Okay, so the next word for this topic is swing states or battleground states. The swing states, I hope you understand what swing is, right? So swing is to move backward or forward or from side to side while hanging from a fixed point, right? So that is coming backward or forward, back and forth, to make something do this, right? So look at the sentence. His arm swung as he walked, right? So it moved backward and forward while he was walking. As he pushed her, she swung higher and higher. So while she was on the swing, she was pushed and then she swung higher and higher. Same swing from something. A set of keys swung from her belt, right? So it was dangling. That way swing can be understood here. He sat on the stool, swinging his legs. So he was moving his legs backward and forward. So that's how swing means. Now these states, which are not decisive, the states which oscillate between one candidate and another candidate, right? So those states are swing states in America. Those states are also battleground states. States in which the electorate is relatively split between Republican and Democrats. So two major parties. So the electorate is divided, right? Is not clearly showing favor for a particular party or for a particular candidate. So making these states the target for aggressive campaigning for both the sides. Since they are swing states, so they can be targeted by both the parties by aggressive election campaign, because they have not decided which party to go for or which candidate to go for, right? So they can be they can be wooed by these political parties or by these candidates by launching aggressive political campaigns, right? So in recent elections, the most important swing states were Florida, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. So those have a high number of electoral votes, making them prime battleground during the election, because the number of voters is higher and because they are not very fixed in terms of their preference for the candidate or for the party, right? So there are blue states in America which are specifically favoring a party, right? There are red states in America which are known for favoring a specific party, right? But these are swing states which can favor for either of the party. And here comes the playground. Here becomes the playground, battleground for both the states, because they can be won by either of the parties. So the list of swing states change with their demographics, right? So as the demography changes, so does the list of these states. In 2008 election, for instance, historically, Republican Virginia and North Carolina voted for Barack Obama, anticipating their status as hard-fought swing states in 2020. Right? So I hope with that you understand what swing means. You're swinging back and forth. That means you are not decisive, you are indecisive, you are oscillating, you are vacillating between two different options, so you are swinging. Same way, swinging states can be those states where it is not clear that which party or candidate is going to win the election. And then these states become the battleground states, because the main fight is to be fought in these states. Alright? Okay, so bully, pulpit. So I hope you understand what bully means, right? So bully is a person who torments you or a person who harasses you, alright? So bully is that. Now pulpit is a stage, is where you come, it's kind of a dais where you come and deliver your speech, right? So this is a very Americanized term which is used for those people who take the advantage of their position, take the advantage of their power to moralize people or to inspire people, right? So both ways, it can be used to inspire people because they have some pioneering ideas or they are thought leaders, and that's why they feel they can inspire the young generation of their country. Or by the virtue of authority vested in their position, they feel they have the power to moralize other people, what is good, what is bad for them, right? So it can be used both ways. So whenever the president seeks to rouse the American people, he is said to be speaking from the bully pulpit, right? So here the word can be used in a negative way because he wants to rouse American people, right? So he can be rousing people for doing something good. So he sees some negative trends happening in society, he sees something bad happening in society, and possibly he's rousing them to do something against them, like gun control. So if he feels that this trend should be arrested, so this mindset of America should be changed. So he can be used, he can use this platform to rouse their emotion, to arouse them. All right. And when the term first came into, bully was slang for frustrate or admirable. Okay, fine. So a position of authority that gives somebody the opportunity to speak in the public about an issue, right? So he intends to use the presidency as a bully pulpit to promote family values. It's something which is very personal. It's something which comes into social domain. So here, a president is using his power, using his position to moralize people what their family values must be and how they must be conducting in their family affairs, right? A position of authority that gives somebody the opportunity to speak in public about an issue, right? So he intends to use the presidency as a bully pulpit to promote family values. Okay, fine. So that's same sentence. All right. I hope you get the sense of the word, that when a person is in power and is in the position of authority, he uses that power and position to tell people what to do. It can be used in a positive way. It can also be used in a negative way. So a person who is holding the position of power in America now can use his position of authority to rouse people's emotion in his favor. So that's how this whole word has come into picture. Alright? With that only, we have very interesting word here, demagogue. So again, this word is not confined to American context. Any leader who arouses people's emotion, their personal interest, their hatred, their fear, any personal feeling, and then takes advantage of them is a demagogue, right? So you can find example of demagogue in India, you can find example of demagogue across the world. The leaders who are coming into power, who are clinching their authority on these positions just because they are dictating by people's wishes, right? So a leader whose impassioned rhetoric appeals to greed, fear, and hatred, and who often spreads lie. It's not a positive word, right? So demo comes for people. So they have democracy, so ruled by people. Demography, so that is the statistics of people. So demo comes for people. Demagogue. So here a person who talks to people, but who talks in a way that arouses their emotions, they arouses their personal feelings, right? So that is demagogue. So former US Senator Joseph McCarthy is often cited as a classic demagogue, a person who took advantage of his position by labeling every opponent as communist. So Americans hated communist ideology, right? So they were antithetical to the ideology of communism. So he, instead of targeting his opponents on valid points, he labeled them communist, right? And he won people's favor once people, support by labeling every opponent as a communist, a person who was in favor of Russia, right? Though they were baseless allegations, these accusations were not valid, but people's support. He managed to gather people's support because Americans hated communism. All right. So that way, he is a classic example of a demagogue, a person who took advantage of people's hatred, people's fear. Americans were fearful of communism, and that because of that fear, they had strong hate for communism and Russia. And all his opponents were turned communist by him. All right. So he is a classic example of a demagogue. So a political leader who tries to win support by using arguments based on emotions rather than reason. Right. So whatever he says to people is not reasonable, is not logical, does not have any rational, but he attracts people because he manages to ride on their emotion. He manages to manipulate their emotion. All right. So a political leader who seeks support by appealing to the desires and prejudice of ordinary people rather than by using rational arguments. So demagogue is a person whose logic, whose speech is never based on logic. A gifted demagogue with particular skill in manipulating the press. So you will see this word coming in negative context because it has negative connotation, right? He does not tell truth. He does not base his argument on reason or logic. He does not tell people what is fact. Right? He does not talk on hard facts. Whatever he does, whatever he says is based on people's emotion, right? So that is what is demagogue. Or he takes advantage of people's fear and prejudice, like Donald Trump did. A lot of people believe he is also a true demagogue, right? So Americans had some kind of fear, right? And that kind of fear was manipulated by him and he came into power, right? So that's how you can understand this work by these various examples. Though you can find a demagogue in India as well, right? A lot of leaders who do not base their speech on facts, hard facts, but rather on people's emotion. They try to take advantage of people's prejudice, all right? And they only say what people want to hear, right? Not what is good for them, but only what people want to hear, what is going to please people. So they are demagogue. One more word, again, which is not confined to America only. You can find the example of filibuster in India as well. So filibuster is an attempt by a senator or group of senators to obstruct the passage of a bill. It can also happen in India when a Lok Sabha member or a Rajya Sabha member tries to dilly-dally the voting of a bill by giving a long, ceaseless speech, right? So filibuster is the word. Now, try to understand this, why it happens, because there is no rule in the Senate over how long a member can speak, right? A Senate can prevent a bill from coming up for a vote by talking endlessly. Senator Storm of South Carolina set the record in 1957 by speaking for more than 24 hours without stopping. So he's talked ceaselessly just because he wanted to stall a bill, right? So when you do this, it's a political tactic, right? So it's kind of manipulative political tactic where you don't have valid reason to oppose a bill. You don't have, a genuine reason to oppose a bill, but you want to stall the implementation of the bill or the voting of the bill, and you give speech endlessly. So long speech made in a parliament in order to delay or prevent a vote. It is also referred as talking a bill to death, right? So as there is no restriction of time for which is for a person to speak in parliament or for a person to speak in Congress or Senate, so they take advantage of this rule and they speak endlessly till the bill is stopped. All right. To make a long speech in parliament in order to delay, the speaker filibustered spectacularly, right? So he went on and on, he talked endlessly to stall the bill. All right, so filibuster in American as well as Indian context. I guess here I come to the end of today's session. Lame duck. So this is used for an office holder whose term has expired or cannot be continued, right? A person who is not going to be elected, a person who is not going to win the election is termed as lame duck, right? I hope you all understand who I am alluding to, right? So a politician or government whose period of office will soon end and who will not be elected again, right? So there is a popular sentiment in America that the person who holds position in White House, the incumbent of White House, is not going to win the election because there is a huge resentment among people against him, against the handling of COVID, against certain policies and certain decisions that he has taken. All right, so he is a lame duck here, right? So lame duck can be termed for any person who is about to lose his power or about to lose his position. All right. So here I come to the end of today's session. I incorporated some of these words which are confined to American presidential election with some of these words, and greater appeal, can also be used in Indian context, or can also be used generalistic way in talking about election or politics, right? So very quickly, let's just have a recap of all these words. So we started with incumbent. So incumbent is a person who holds an office, who holds an authority. It is not only used for political way, but it's also used in other sense, like the incumbent, the present incumbent of a company. So it is a person who holds the highest position of that company, or the incumbent or the incumbent director. So that means the person who holds the position of the director in an organization. When I use it is incumbent on you, that means now it's necessary for you, right? Since he is losing popular vote, he is likely to lose popular vote. It is incumbent upon him to take some decisive action if he wants to stay in power, if he wants to retain his position. I'm talking about Donald Trump here. If he wants to retain his position, it is incumbent upon him to take some decisive action, right? Just take some decisive action to win the election, because he seems to be losing this election. So it is incumbent upon him. So the word means it is necessary, right? It is incumbent upon you to use these words in your active vocabulary, in speaking and writing, all right? Anti-incumbency we understood as a factor which works against the person who is in the position of power, right? So the party which is ruling party will be routed in next election if anti-incumbency factor is working. In 2014, it worked in India. In 2019, it did not work, right? So when we had election again, Lok Sabha election again, people did not have anti-incumbency factor, right? So there was no anti-incumbency factor. So the government which was chosen in 2014, BJP, was chosen again in 2019. All right, so that way you can understand it worked in 2014, it did not work in 2019 at national level, right? You can understand anti-incumbency in your respective states as well. Bellwether state, bellwether means something which indicates what's going to happen in future, right? So monsoon is a bellwether for good economy. So if there is a good monsoon, it's a sign that good economy, the economy will flourish this year, right? So that is a bellwether. So bellwether states, we understood by those states where these states represent entire country, and these are those states which always vote for those candidates who win the presidency, right? Ohio is the finest example of bellwether state. In Indian context, I gave you the example of UP. Capitol. So here the word is used for that building which is there in Washington DC, where people of Congress and Senate, the representative of Congress and Senate come and discuss and debate issues and pass the bill, right? Delegates, any person who represents a constituency, an organization, or the will of the people, right? So delegate. When you delegate something, that means you give away your power, right? Or give part of your power, you give part of your authority to someone else, especially somebody who is beneath you, right? So that way you delegate your authority, you delegate your power. Electoral College is composed of those people who are entrusted with the responsibility of choosing the President of America. Electoral College is also in India. The system of Electoral College is also in India for the election of President. Please do read about it if you want to gather more information. Swing states are those states where mood can be changed, right? So these are tilted states. They can be tilted in favor of Republican Party. They can be tilted in favor of Democrat Party, right? So these parties decide to have aggressive public campaign, aggressive political campaign in these parties, because they are not traditionally Democratic or Republican, unlike other states which have always voted for one party or the other. Alright, so these are swing states, these are battleground states, because they are going to decide which party ultimately wins the presidency. So this word comes for using your authority, your position for moralizing people, for sermonizing people, or for pushing a specific agenda. Right? So that is goody. It can also be used in a negative or positive, both ways. Demagogue, a leader who arouses people's emotion, who thrives on people's fear, takes advantage of them, comes into power, and stays in power by playing on those emotions. Negative word, highly negative word. Filibuster, a tactic or a modus operandi of these politicians, where they want to stall a bill, they speak endlessly, right? So that the voting is stalled or the voting is delayed and the bill is not passed. All right. Lame duck, a person who is about to lose his authority. All right. So please try to capitalize on these words. I gave you the basic understanding of American presidential election and the words which are related to them. If you find your interest in this topic, you must gather more information about it. There are ample articles available on internet. You can find it on BBC, you can find it on Washington Post. So very good articles written on covering US presidential election, right? So if you want to gather more information, please read from these authentic sources. Instead of reading something on unverifiable sources, you read these authentic sources so that you have hard facts in your head, right? And then please use these words, because ultimately the purpose of this session is to build your vocabulary, to build your linguistic ability, talk about, to write these issues with more and more confidence. All right, I'm going to have one more session of this kind. Stay tuned on this channel, keep watching my video. I will welcome your thoughts and opinion on how useful you find these sessions are, and what more things you want me to cover in next sessions. All right, thank you very much.